We're Americans. We love comebacks. We love the comeback story. Is this the greatest comeback in the history of college football? Welcome into the Voice of College Football. Appreciate you being here Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. Eastern time for the College Football Show. This is what we do, is talk college football with you. My rants, the best guests we can find, and certainly your comments and questions are welcome in the chat. The call-in line is also available. We will get to the news of the day. The Amazon links in the description section of all the videos, of all the live streams and all the videos. Please use the Amazon link. It is transparent to you. Amazon immediately recognizes your account, your information, so please use our Amazon link. That way you can contribute to the network here at the Voice of College Football. All right, let's get to the news of the day. On the day of the beginning of the weekend, of course, on Thursday, we look forward to college football. We did not have a Thursday night game last week because of the NFL debut, but we've got Thursday night football, and we've got a really good Friday game on tap with Arizona taking on Kansas State as the first of the Fox Friday night games. And we will look at that in the next few days. But our focus right now is on the Pac-2, soon to become the Pac-6. As reported by Yahoo Sports, first and foremost, I believe late last night, I got a notification, also received some text messages from some of you out there regarding the late news from overnight. And then I see that ESPN reported as well, of course, but contributes or attributes the original story to Yahoo. And so we go to the Ross Dellinger article from this morning. Here we go, folks. This is huge. Sources confirming to Yahoo Sports, Pac-12 rebuilding conference targeting Boise State, San Diego State, Fresno State, Colorado State. We will certainly delve into why those four and further candidates. That's what we do. The Pac-12 is mobilizing its long discussed plan to rebuild the league with additions from the Mountain West, sources tell Yahoo Sports. The two-team conference of Washington State and Oregon State is targeting Boise State, San Diego State, Colorado State, and Fresno State as new additions in a reimagined Pac-12. Those schools are expected to soon apply or have already applied for membership into the conference, the first step in the process to complete the deal. They would join the league starting with the 2026 school year. Commissioner Teresa Gould and officials from the Pac-12 have spent the last year examining possible options for their future after 10 schools left the league for the Big Ten, the Big 12, and the ACC. They have long held the belief that they can preserve the Pac-12 brand by reconstructing the conference through expansion, using its 108-year-old tradition, history, and assets to attract new members. This is expected to be the first phase in a multi-phase expansion endeavor to reach, at the very least, 8 schools, because that's the NCAA's minimum required to qualify as an FBS conference. If the aforementioned 4 join, the league needs 2 more to complete the process. Simple math. It must reach the minimum of those schools by July of 2026 to end the end of the NCAA's 2-year grace period. Okay. That is key. The Pac-12's board must approve any membership applications and is expected to do so soon. The deal could be finalized by the end of the week. The expansion is not inexpensive. Each Mountain West school is contractually bound to a $17 million exit fee. I saw 18 reported somewhere else. The Pac-12 is on the hook for an additional 10 to 12 million penalty fee for every school they require as part of a scheduling agreement the conference struck with the Mountain West. So that is $27 to $29 million per school. After months of examining future options, league officials determined to reimagine the conference with an expansion approach. In negotiations with potential new members, Pac-12 officials and third parties have presented a plan that features a new media rights agreement worth more than the Mountain West Conference current or future television package, as well as the sponsorship potential of the Pac-12 brand. The two schools offer attractive assets, meaning Washington State and Oregon State, that could total millions as a result of the 10 schools departing the conference, including monies from the Rose Bowl contract, college football playoff, the NCAA basketball tournament units, and Pac-12 enterprises, previously the Pac-12 network. The league lost its designation as an autonomous power conference, a moniker that gave it more voting privileges within the NCAA governance and more revenue in the CFP distribution model. Although, let's keep in mind that Washington State and Oregon State are receiving a cut. It is unclear if the conference could regain such a designation. During Pac-12 Media Days in Las Vegas in July, Gold hosted media members, administrators, coaches, and players for a gathering to celebrate the conference, projecting a bright future and suggesting a potential rebuild. Quote, "There's a lot of interest in having a high-level conference rooted on the West Coast," she told Yahoo Sports then. Quote, "There's a lot of interest in our communities and fan bases. A lot of people care deeply about the Pac-12 and the Pac-12 brand. There's a lot of nostalgia about the possibility of a rebuild." The Pac-12's first expansion phase considers geographic and cultural significance while serving a blow to the rival Mountain West. The Mountain West Conference, a 12-team football league, counting Hawaii, would lose some of its top brands despite a scheduling alliance with the Pac-12 that many projected to end with a reverse merger or a merger with Oregon State and Washington State. That's why this is so intriguing, among other things. However, earlier this month, negotiations broke down between the Pac-12 and Mountain West over adding a second year to the 2024 football scheduling alliance, a fight that most notably involved financial differences, according to those with knowledge of the talks. The move by the Pac-12 could ignite another round of realignment, at least for those schools at the Group of Five or even FCS level. In needing to fill departures, the Mountain West is likely to evaluate possible members to elevate to FBS. The Pac-12's move may have another ripple effect on a grander stage, the college football playoff. Given the departures in the Pac-12, CFP leaders last year voted to change the 12-team expanded playoff format. They removed one automatic qualifying spot, going from 5 to 4, and added an at-large bid for a format that features 5 AQs for the highest-ranked conference champions and 7 at-large bids. In the next 2 years, the Pac-12 champion is not eligible for an automatic qualifying spot, as it does not meet the CFP's conference minimum requirement. However, starting in 2026, the champion of a rebuilt Pac-12 would presumably, big word there, be eligible to receive an automatic bid. We will get your thoughts. Please call the show, and I will provide my thoughts, of course, in the chat. Yakov and little else. Nobody's talking today. All right, so I'll get right to it. From the top, my thoughts as we read this. I looked at this morning, so I've read it once before just now. Washington State, Oregon State. So it's been kind of comical to see that this Pac-12 has become a Pac-2, and why in the world would they stay together when everybody is left? And these two schools, or so we may have thought, would be trying to save themselves and moving on to somewhere else, whether that be Mountain West or the Big 12. And I have certainly proposed that side of what could be the future, that result. Washington State, Oregon State, leaving what is left of the Pac-12/2 and completely disbanding the conference to nothing, and the conference implodes and is no longer in existence. Let's understand that even though the Pac-12 does not play football this year, does not play athletics, it is still technically an entity as outlined in this article. So while that has been something that I've thrown out there as, well, looks like Washington State and Oregon State are going to have to find the best home possible, which looks like it would be the Big 12 and probably will wind out being the Mountain West Conference. Let's also understand there is a reason why there is still a Pac-12. There still is a Pac-12 commissioner. So the league did not disband and still has assets. So that's been a talking point that we've gone over because on a sports level and on the surface, it appears ridiculous to have two teams in a league that are actually not in a league in a practical sense this football season. They're just floating out there, and they just cut a deal to the Pac-12. But behind the scenes and under the surface, the Pac-12 is still operating as an entity with all the assets that we have read about. And also, it was not Washington State and Oregon State that cut that contract deal with the Mountain West. It's not like they reached out to the Mountain West and cut a deal between the MWC and those two schools, and they just happened to cut the same deal. No, that was a Pac conference deal with the Mountain West. So while on the field, the Pac has been dead and presumed dead and gone, it's not as an entity. And this is proof of it right there. So there has been reason for the Pac conference to stay together, for them to maintain a commissioner and two teams, because lo and behold, they are rising from the ashes. And I love it. It is good to see. I don't like it for the Mountain West. I do not like it for the Mountain West. And there can be all sorts of models that we can put together of what this could look like. We know that it's going to be 6 in the Pac-12. Of course, they need to get to 8. Of course, they've got other candidates in mind. And most of those candidates, you would think, will be coming from the Mountain West Conference. So just because they did not offer an invitation initially to any other schools did not mean a la other conference expansion that they will not offer other schools. Let's continue in this article. But I find it fascinating that the Pac-12 continued operation. And why not? They're still valuable assets. They have 2 schools. They have a commissioner. They have a television network. They have other assets. And then they've got all those contracts that they have leveraged in their direction to hang on to. And we'll get to those again in this article. So all those schools that we just discussed, and we'll probably post a separate video looking at Boise State, San Diego State, Colorado State, and Fresno State as why are they in the front row? Why are they the most desired schools? 3 of the 4 are pretty obvious. The other one, Colorado State, not so much. So again, the first step in the process is to complete the deal. So Ross Dellinger did a great job of reporting here. Does not know, however, whether the schools have already applied or still need to apply to membership. They would join the league starting with the 2026 school year. So that's the football season of 2026 on into 2027. Commissioner Teresa Gold of the Pac-12 and officials from the Pac-12. They still have officials at the Pac-12 have spent the last year examining possible options. This is why they did not disband. They still knew that they had assets that would be valuable and desired and attractive to other schools. And obviously, the Mountain West is the obvious target. They have long held the belief that they can preserve the Pac-12 brand by reconstructing the conference through expansion, a 108-year-old tradition, history, assets. Okay. Expected to be the first phase, what we're seeing right now, multi-phase expansion endeavor to reach, at the very least, 8 schools. I would think that they would want to go past 8 schools, but they at least need to get to 8 schools to reach that NCAA minimum requirement to remain a FBS conference. Okay. And that minimum needs to be reached by July of 2026 because, of course, the exits of these other schools resulted in the Pac-12 going beneath the 8 in July of 2024. So there was a 2-year grace period offered. And so there's still almost 2 years, just 2 months shy of 2 years for the Pac-12 to reconstruct its league. And apparently with these 4, they are only 2 schools away. They probably want to get to 12. They obviously want to take in schools that are going to add value and not just hit a number, but I believe they would like to get to 12. That seems to be the minimum number that these conferences at least would like. And that fortifies you against possible losses in the future. Maybe the Pac-12 takes off with 12 members, but the Big 12 comes a calling in 3 to 5 years and likes what's going on at a particular stop, San Diego State. The Pac-12's board must approve any membership applications and is expected to soon do so. And they will be accepting those applications. Obviously, the deal could be finalized by the end of this week. The expansion is not inexpensive, $17 to $18 million as an exit fee. And then the Pac-12 on the hook for an additional $10 to $12 million penalty for every school they acquire as part of a scheduling agreement the conference struck with the Mountain West. This is what I find fascinating. Okay, we've got Parker Thune on the line. Parker joining us today. Parker from OU Insider. Parker, how you doing today?
Doing all right, Mark. How about you?
I apologize there. I did not see you. I had a few other windows blocking the view there. So
not a problem. I can recall a time where there was some conversation about Oklahoma going to the Pac-12 back in the day. Boy, how different the college football landscape would look today if that had come to fruition.
That was talked about. Texas was also in play to make that move. Wow. Yes, there would certainly be an extremely strong Pac-12 right now, we would assume. Well, Oklahoma's on the field, of course, this Saturday once again. And coming off of this, you know, when Oklahoma used to get scared and have a scary result, it used to be from an offensive standpoint, they would get into some of these shootouts with maybe a lesser opponent once or twice a year, and you'd have a 45-42 kind of scare. Army comes to mind about 5 years ago. But with the change in style of play, now they're more slow and scary outcomes, as we saw against Houston at 16-12. Offensive line issues come to the forefront here, Parker. So we talked about it all off season that the offensive line had question marks, but now question marks with some potential injuries that could impact the starting lineup this week.
Yeah, well, there's no potential about it. That offensive line is beleaguered and has been from really the start of fall camp for Oklahoma. Troy Everett, who started for half the season last year at left guard, the Appalachian State transfer, he underwent surgery in the spring. He has been unavailable ever since. He's gotten back to practicing in recent days, and he is expected back in the next couple of weeks. So that should be a nice shot in the arm for this Oklahoma offensive line. But Garen Hatchett, the Washington transfer whom they brought in to fortify the interior of that offensive line, tore a bicep in preseason camp, tried it for a week. It was very, very obvious that you're not playing offensive line at the Power 4 level with a torn bicep. He toughed it out as much so as he possibly could, but ended up getting a season-ending surgery. So he is out of the picture for the foreseeable future. Right tackle Jake Taylor is dealing with a multiplicity of ailments. Tried to go last week against Houston, had to leave that game in the third quarter. And, You add to that the injury status of SMU transfer center Branson Hickman, who drew the start in the opener, left the game on the second drive, and has not played since as he deals with what Brent Venables called an ankle sprain. The Sooners are very, very beleaguered up front. And until they get healthy, Mark, it's really a question of how well this offensive line could play, even if they were hitting all their marks, even if they were playing flawless football and establishing chemistry up front. Because you're missing some of your enforcers. Branson Hickman was widely regarded as the top available interior offensive lineman in the entire spring portal cycle. So not having him available, having to figure things out, having to shuffle the deck a little bit has been tough on this line. Michael Tarquin started out the season at left tackle. He's had to move to right tackle. Jacob Sexton, or I should say Tarquin started out the season at right tackle, moved to the left side, moved back to the right side. Jacob Sexton started left tackle. He's had to slide inside to left guard. And it's really put a strain on this entire offensive line, just trying to compensate for all of these injuries that they're dealing with. It's two groups that Oklahoma right now just cannot get healthy, is the offensive line and the wide receiver room. And you felt that against Houston. You felt it.
Parker Thune, OU Insider, and of course, KREF Sports every Monday through Friday. That's at noon Central Time. And the person most impacted by that is, of course, Jackson Arnold. Mm-hmm. Is it a bit difficult to evaluate his performance? I know the numbers don't look pretty. The scoreboard doesn't look pretty from what happened on Saturday night against Houston.
No, and there's no real way to sugarcoat what happened Saturday night, Mark. I mean, it's not just the injuries that you can pin it on. Jackson Arnold needs to play better. And again, the circumstances, the environment, not necessarily conducive to the growth and maturation and flourishing of a young quarterback. But by the same token, there were a lot of throws on Saturday night that should have been made by the guy that's the starting quarterback at the University of Oklahoma that were not made. And so, yes, it is tough to evaluate his play, especially this early on. You got to take everything with a grain of salt as he gets his feet underneath him as the starter. I don't think anybody is rushing to throw Jackson Arnold on the pine, but by the same token, he does need to take a step up in terms of his level of play, his processing ability, and then just the confidence with which he pushes the ball downfield. Kind of seemed like he was trying to place some of those downfield throws when in reality what the Sooners want him to do, what they need him to do, is just air it out, trust that arm talent, trust that natural ability that was so evident as a senior in high school at Denton Guyer down in Texas when he won the National Gatorade Player of the Year honors. So the talent is there. I think right now with Arnold, it's just between the ears, and it certainly can't help his confidence that what he's dealing with is a patchwork offensive line and a patchwork receiver room that right now is missing 4 of their top 5 wideouts.
Yeah, I got to admit, Parker, I go to 3 screens every television window. You were obviously in the building, but Houston and Oklahoma was not one of my selections initially. But when there was 10 or 11 minutes left in the game, and I keep seeing 16-12 at the bottom, or I think it was 14-12 at that point at the bottom of the screen, I was like, okay, I have to gut this one out. I got to see what's going on here. And of course, Oklahoma pulls off the safety that proved to be give them a little bit of a strategic advantage there in addition to the 2 points. Yeah, the receiver room that was lauded the entire offseason. You could take maybe one injury, but the multiple injuries to hit this group now, a strength has become a question mark.
Yeah, no doubt. And I mean, the reality of it, Mark, is there's no way around that. Like, that's not something you can really compensate for. You take 4 of the top 5 wide receivers on any roster in America, and that team is that offense is going to have struggles establishing a consistent passing attack. Nick Anderson has not played this year. Jaden Gibson is out for the season. Jalil Farouk left the Sooners opener on the first drive with a broken foot. He's going to miss 2 months. Andrell Anthony coming back from a torn ACL mid-season last year. He's still not up to 100%. So, man, Deion Burks, the Purdue transfer, It felt like a luxury addition when Oklahoma brought him in this offseason. Didn't really feel like they needed Deion Burks. That was just kind of Emmett Jones flexing his muscles as an evaluator of talent, and just flexing his muscles as far as his ability to go acquire that talent, go toe to toe with the top programs in America for one of the top portal denizens in America in Deion Burks. But if you don't have Deion Burks in that offense right now, Mark, I mean, who is playing wide receiver for Oklahoma? They're dealing with more injuries than I think anybody could have imagined was even possible throughout this season, let alone 3 weeks in, right? It's 3 weeks in and you already have all those guys on the shelf. And it's not the prettiest of pictures. They do have some exciting young talent, guys that have a lot of raw ability, but just aren't very seasoned. For instance, a guy that got 39 snaps in the game against Houston is true freshman Zion Reagans, a speedster, one of the fastest prospects in the country from the state of Georgia. But he's only been on campus for 3 months, and he's listed at 5'8", 150 pounds. That's a guy that you'd like to be using for 10, maybe 15 snaps a game, not 40. So, again, it was similar to that offensive line right now. The Sooners are having to press a lot of guys into action at the wide receiver position that are by no means in over their heads, but they're certainly being rushed along developmentally because they have to be.
And this daunting situation, unfortunately, comes at the same time in combination with a daunting schedule that we talked about the entire offseason. So that's coming soon, or maybe that's even coming on Saturday, because Tulane is no joke. And talk about wide receiver play. Old buddy Mario Williams shows up for Tulane, and he's off to a great start. It's good to see that Woody Washington is back as of last week and had a nice game, almost had an interception called back by penalty. But there's a matchup there. This Tulane team is obviously no joke.
Yeah, Oklahoma can't get caught looking past them. They got to take this team seriously. Tulane went down to the wire with Kansas State just a week ago. And the thing about that Tulane team, Mark, is that I think most would concur their weakness is in the secondary. If you can effectively push the ball downfield, you'll have success. But can the Sooners effectively push the ball downfield in the passing game? That is a significant and lingering question after the collective offensive performance and the performance of Jackson Arnold against Houston. So, no, they cannot look past Tulane. But then on the other side of that matchup with the Green Wave, you got a Tennessee team coming to town the next week that has looked as good as anybody in America through 2 weeks, Mark. So this is not the juncture at which you want to have some of your key contributors sidelined. It is not an ideal situation in the slightest.
Yeah, Tulane, of course, college football fans, even outside of Tulane and Oklahoma camps, will recall 3 seasons ago the scare that the Green Wave on their way to a 2-10 season provided in Norman. 40-35, Michael Pratt stopped 4th and inches at midfield. It's a very different Tulane program now. Willie Fritz, of course, off to Houston, really built it up, and it appears as though John Sumrall is picking it right back to where it was because of the good performance against a good Kansas State team that's typically considered a top 15 to 20 team in all of college football. I should have asked this sooner, but I was just interested in what the tenor of the stadium was like in the second half, because it was such a drag of a game.
Yeah.
On top of the scary situation, the score.
Yeah, I'm not really sure how to describe it, Mark. The best way that I can kind of encapsulate all that occurred Saturday night and the collective reaction to it from the fans is, walking out of that stadium. I've covered a lot of OU games over the years. I don't know that with regard to the environment and the general vibe from the fans in attendance, I don't know that there has ever been a win that felt like less of a win to those folks than that 16-12 squeaker over Houston. It was more relief than anything. The fact that Well, a combination of relief and also alarm, because yes, you escaped Houston, but I think it was then and there that everyone realized, oh man, this offense does have some challenges that they're going to have to face, and they're going to have to get squared away here in the next couple of weeks, because no longer are you playing in the Big 12, Mark, where for at least 9 or 10 games out of the season, you just have substantially more talent than the opposition. You're playing SEC ball now. Everybody is as talented as you. And so, yes, again, not to look past Tulane, but starting with Tennessee on September 21st, man, you better have all your ducks in a row, because you can't rely on sheer firepower to elevate you to 10, 11 victories, as has been the standard and the expectation at Oklahoma for so long.
And again, to put all this together in terms of a complete situation, it's not just saying, let's go back to the drawing board. It's let's go back to the drawing board, but we don't have our Jimmies and Joes to do so. We're going to have to figure out with the second and third guys. Wow. I don't know that there's a team in the country that's in this situation.
No, I don't think there is, Mark.
I
And
don't think
I don't
so.
claim to have a pulse on all 133 FBS teams, but I find it hard to believe that there is a program that is A, dealing with this many injuries at the same time, and B, this many injuries concentrated within two very significant, very important position groups.
We see a similar, well, I don't want to compare the situations. We see a situation at Florida State where they're losing football games. Oklahoma's not losing football games as of yet, and we see it affecting recruiting at Florida State. Any reverb there in regards to a possibility of it hurting recruiting? And what are some of the recruiting landmarks that are coming up?
No, I really don't think it'll have too much of an effect. Look, Oklahoma still technically has a verbal pledge from 4-star wide receiver Cortez Mills from Homestead, Florida. Not really expecting that one to stick. He took a visit to Nebraska over the weekend. Oklahoma's got 4 other receivers besides Mills committed in the class, so if they lose him, it's not the end of the world. I'm not even sure they would go pursue another wideout. They'd just stick with the 4 that they have solidly committed. So that's the one guy right now in the class that I think you can pretty well expect not to remain in the class. But beyond that, when there's a very obvious explanation for your shortcomings as a football team, I think it makes it easier to explain to recruits, right? If you're Mike Norvell in Florida State right now, it's not all that easy to explain why you lost to Georgia Tech to open the season and then got taken to the woodshed on your home field by Boston College. That's going to be a tough thing for 16, 17-year-old kids to reckon with. But if you're in Brent Venables' shoes, it's not that hard. And he did so in his press conference earlier this week. He basically said in so many words, look, how solid can you expect this football team to be when we have so many of our top guys that are sidelined? And so I think just because of the circumstances, it's not going to be too difficult to make sure that your recruits, that your 2025 class as a whole, still pretty content, confident, still has that belief in what Venables and his staff are building at Oklahoma, circumstances right this second aside.
Follow the saga further with Parker every day on OU Insider, and of course Monday through Friday on KREF Sports. Parker shows again at noon Central Time. Parker, anything else to add to that in regards to your coverage leading up to the Tulane game and then on into the SEC opener?
No, sir. I mean, if you're watching on YouTube, you're already on YouTube. Finish watching Mark's show, and then you might check out the OUinsider.com YouTube channel, where we've got loads of additional content. Most of the good stuff is on OUinsider.com itself, but you can subscribe to the YouTube channel for free. Pretty easy, surface level way to make sure that you're staying up to speed with everything that's going on within the Oklahoma football program and out on the recruiting trail as well.
Parker, thanks so much for stopping by. Enjoy the game this weekend.
Yep, appreciate it, Mark.
Parker Thune does such an outstanding job for OU Insider. And then, you can see his show right here on YouTube, KREF Sports, Monday through Friday, 12 to 3 Central Time, 1 to 4 Eastern Time. as we will pick up our topic here at the Voice of College Football. The Pac-12 is still alive, which would be the Pac-2 currently going to the Pac-6, apparently as soon as by the end of the week. So we will pick up the conversation where we left it. Keep in mind that in just a few hours, Ole Miss Live premieres with myself and Leanne Herring. That can be seen right here on the national channel, and we'll also be on the SEC channel. And please join us for the premiere of Ole Miss Live and a preview of the Wake Forest game. All right, let's get back to it in terms of the Pac-12 situation, and we'll see if there's anything that you guys are bringing to the table. Waxman, can we talk about how bad Colorado is with all its flash? We can talk about that. That's probably for a future day, Waxman, but I appreciate that. So, of course, you got a super chat there. I will honor that, of course, to answer that succinctly before we get back to the Pac-12. And keep in mind that we've got overtime based on contributions, and we'll get into that in just a second. We've got a call coming in that we want to pick up. I'll say this, that there was a class move made this week by Deion Sanders. So sometime this past summer, there was a derogatory comment made by Jay Norvell, the Colorado State head coach's wife, on X. The post has been taken down since then. I don't know exactly what the statement was. So Colorado plays Colorado State this week, and Deion Sanders was asked about the post made by Jay Norvell's wife. And Deion Sanders commented, I got a chance to meet Jay's wife this summer at the Big 12 meetings, and she was delightful. And then the question was kind of rephrased. Well, what about what she had to say about your family or your sons? And he said, well, I just basically take people at face value, and I don't need an apology from her. She's a delightful person, and I've got to believe that's who she is. So I thought that was a classy move by Deion Sanders. For all the criticism that others have wielded on Deion Sanders, and some from myself, certainly, there are the live streams and the videos on record to document my criticisms of Deion Sanders. In this particular case, I think he took the high road and proved to be a class act on this day. But in terms of the Colorado football team, no, it's not being built in such a way that is sustainable. You build a football program still through high school recruiting, still by traveling to meet with recruits, hustling on the recruiting trail, not thinking, okay, my brand is so big personally. And let's not make a mistake about this. Deion Sanders does have a larger brand than anyone in college football by far. It's not even close. Talked about it a few weeks in regards to the brand being completely separate from college football. He is his own entity. He had a brand 30 years ago. It has only been magnified and strengthened in the last 30 years. All that aside, that should not be the building block for a football program. The building block has to be resources, facilities, people, quality people, recruiting, and football knowledge. Not a name brand, a personal name brand. And so the result of this has been his collection of some talented players here and there that are phenomenal. If Colorado played like three-man touch football against everybody in the country, they might win the national championship because they have three of the best athletes in the nation. And they picked up a couple pieces here and there. They tried to fortify an offensive line that obviously has not been fortified. Either those individual players are not good enough, or they have not gelled to complete that offensive line. And Nebraska just physically pounded that team. They just looked like junior high players taking on the varsity. It was embarrassing, way beyond 28-10. All you had to do was watch the first quarter and watch Nebraska just pummel them physically. From a strength and conditioning standpoint, the Nebraska lines were overwhelming, overpowering them. And even on individual matchups, the Dante Dowdle, for example, there was an injury suffered by somebody. Was it Shiloh Sanders on a hit by Dante Dowdle, the Nebraska running back? Just, I believe, broke his forearm, right? I'll have to look into that. So, yeah, Nebraska was punishing. Colorado does not have, they don't have a football team. They have a brand. They don't have a football program. They have a football brand. They have a personality brand. And they've collected some talent to play two-man touch. All right. We got a call coming in from Defiant. Defiant, what's going on?
Nothing much, Mark. How are you?
I am doing just fine. A lot going on in college football today.
I just wanted to talk about a little bit about the Pac-12. And again, one of the teams you talk about, Colorado State. Yeah, I'm kind of curious too why they were added before maybe like a school like UNLV. I know historically, I know they're okay program. I know last couple of years they haven't been that good. I don't know the last time we made a bowl game or anything. But I really do think that they're just trying to get into maybe the Denver market. I know when they're talking about expansion before, I know Colorado State is coming up for maybe in addition to the Denver market.
Yeah, so I think everything that you just said is on point. So those three, Fresno State, San Diego State, and Boise State, are obvious. They are the three best programs, even though San Diego State's coming off a rough year. They are the three best programs in the conference. And then the rest of them bring their pluses and minuses to the table. And Colorado State, yes, they've had a decent football program a long time ago. I don't know that when we talk about football programs and success, and if that success is relevant, I think with some programs, the success that you could mention from 1970 or from 1990 or 2000 is still relevant today. But with some programs, they're just guys that had the name Colorado State on their jerseys and the colors and the helmets and the gear, but the program's completely different. There's no reason, there's no connection between what they accomplished 30 years ago and who they are today. And I think Colorado State's one of those programs. I have to go with your premise because that's the first thing that came to mind for me as well, that it's close to the Denver market. Knowing how rabid Colorado fans are, meaning the state of Colorado, the population within the state about football, and 98% of that directed toward the Denver Broncos, that I don't think that's much of an impact, but it's potentially an impact. I don't know what the Denver TV ratings are for Colorado State games, but I got to think that they're obviously better in Denver than they are in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, but they're not that much better. But it's the potential of gaining that market. Defiant, you still with us? I think we lost Defiant. Defiant, we appreciate you being here.
Hello?
Oh, you still with us? Defiant.
Yeah, sorry. I accidentally muted my mic and I couldn't figure out how to unmute it for a second. No, as I was saying, yeah, no, I definitely agree that, but the potential is there. And I know the potential was there when they added Colorado. That's the reason why they added Colorado. I know, again, they're trying to add all more schools from the Big 12, but that was one of the markets they're trying to get into. And I really think with the Colorado move, I think you got to the market, but the program wasn't that good. I know for most of the athletics, it wasn't that good. But again, you get Colorado State, you get a smaller school, yes, but I would think you want to get a bigger market, and UNLV was kind of the school I was thinking for that fourth school, because you already had the Pac-12 basketball tournament in there. It's a big market, and the market that is growing every single day, potentially now with maybe the Oakland A's moving there, the Raiders moving there recently, and them getting a hockey team. That market is built, I think, for a Power 4, Power 5 team to join the Pac-12.
Yeah, so your points are well taken on one side, but they can also be negatives, that UNLV would be buried by professional sports.
Yeah, I see. I definitely see that point.
But I generally agree with you that the positives outweigh the negatives. So I'm just bringing up the negative. College sports are squashed by professional sports everywhere where a major college sits in a metro area, whether that's Rutgers, Boston College, Miami, SMU. All those schools are completely overshadowed, and that's not even a good word for it, annihilated by the NFL in particular, and the entire professional sports scene. USC would be the best example of somebody that survives that when they're good. But to your point, even though that's a downside that I brought up just as a counterpoint, I think the positives far outweigh the negatives of the people that travel to the city constantly, that you could lure them to your games if you market it correctly, that you could get a ton of overflow crowd from tourists, and that maybe there's not a game in any other sport going on that weekend, or that fit into their plans, or they don't like hockey, or they don't want to watch the Oakland A's. They would rather, or the Las Vegas A's, they would rather see a football game. Therefore, let's go watch UNLV play. And it's just, yeah, there are so many benefits to being in the entertainment capital of the world. And as you mentioned, while the basketball conference tournament is there, I guess that can be played anywhere, but it is something. I guess it's been successful being played there and having that partnership with the city. So like you, knowing that this expansion gets the Pac-12 to 6 schools and they need at least 2 more, the first 2 that come to mind that are successes in certain areas would be UNLV. And then the other one that I don't know how they're going to be viewed, but if you're just looking at a successful football program, it's obviously Air Force.
Mm-hmm.
They're the best football program, but I don't know what type of issues there could be in regards to the military, although that hasn't seemed to be an issue with Navy and with Army.
Yeah, no, definitely. But I thought I did see something about why they could have joined the Power 4 due to all the money they would be getting, even though they're federally funded. But also to also say, would you consider a Tulane or even like a school ranked high in academics for like a 9th or a 10th member if they were to expand to 10?
Oh, absolutely. They should go after those kind of schools, because our next wave of schools that are in line for promotion to the power conferences involves Memphis, Tulane. Those are the first 2 that come to mind outside of who we're talking about here. And we've already seen the wave of Cincinnati, Houston, UCF, and now SMU. So those are the next ones in line. And look at Tulane. Look at how good they've been the last few years. Look at what they did last weekend, even though they lost. They play competitive football, line them up against Ole Miss last year, Kansas State this year, Kansas State a few years ago that they beat on their way to a Big 12 championship. They lost to Tulane. They're a really good football program, and they're in New Orleans, another destination city. They could capitalize on tourism and being a city where people congregate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I would also get a team in Texas too. I don't know who we would get in Texas, but you probably want somebody there to be like a travel partner for them at least.
Maybe Texas State or UTSA.
Yeah, I know UTSA was thrown around now recently because, again, big market, San Antonio. I just don't know how academically will they fit and all that stuff. I know probably they at least want to keep some type of academic prestige in the conference a little bit.
Well, I don't know that that hasn't broken down at this point, just because, yes, when the Pac 12 included Stanford, Cal, and other schools, UCLA, there was that academic prestige. And I'm sure that that is still important to many administrators and officials within the Pac 12. However, Washington State and Oregon State were certainly nowhere near the top of the academic ladder in the Pac 12. And Boise State is getting better in academic rankings, but it is way down the list. I don't remember exactly what the number is, but I'll get reacquainted with this when I look through these candidates. 230 comes to mind, something in that range of public universities. And so is UNLV down the list. So I think the Pac 12 at this point is just looking for dollar signs and stability.
Mm-hmm. And then my last point is, if this move does happen, they get to 8 or get to 10, possibility is Cal and Stanford might rejoin. Do you think not 2026? I'm just saying, but like, do you think maybe after a while, some of these former Pac-12 schools realize that, hey, the conference is stable, they're making money, and then the travel really isn't there for us in terms of Cal and Stanford going to the East Coast almost every week. Do you see that maybe being a possibility in the future down the line, the next 10, maybe 20 years, or even longer than that?
Well, Defiant, we could have had breakfast together because I was coming up with the same thoughts as I was looking at this this morning. That came to mind as well. Stanford and Cal, obviously misplaced, and very much Pac-12 schools at heart. So, yes, now once you factor in those two schools and their academic standing, then that becomes maybe a little complicated in regards to them wanting to go back into the Pac 12 and expanded Pac 12 with maybe schools of a lesser standing, as opposed to while they are traveling across the country, they're currently, and we know what the future, the instability of the ACC is, but for the time being partnered with North Carolina, Duke, Virginia, high level academic schools certainly is something that Cal and Stanford covet. So maybe going back to, so there's going to be two factors involved, two basic factors, and that would be what you're talking about, the travel. And as important as Olympic sports are, especially to Stanford, to say, okay, we can tear ourselves free of this ridiculous cross country travel schedule for the entire sports year and get back to where we belong. And we can also, they're going to assess the stability of the ACC. As the ACC, what's the ACC going to look like in 2 or 3 years? And then also weigh, okay, what does the television contract look like? And as long as the new formed Pac 12 can be somewhat competitive with what the ACC has to offer, then I could definitely see them retracting and going back, just like, shoot, Colorado has 10 years later.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting though if they do go back. It'd be like a whole Colorado finance, situation again, where they left for greener pastures technically, and then they're just coming back because they knew they couldn't handle the ACC.
What seems funny to me is that it states in that article that as long as the Pac 12 can get to 8 members by 2026, so they have 2 years minus 2 months from now, that based on the contract, that they retain their power conference status and would have an automatic bid to the college football playoff, a league with
I
schools that
was
we're
curious
talking
about
about.
if they would retain the automatic Power 5 status or not.
That would be hilarious.
Yeah,
I don't know that
then
it
you
would be
have Colorado
justified.
State on the same, and you have Colorado State on the same level as Stanford or like a Clemson. Oh, I'll be laughing when that day happens when they're like, I went back to the Power 5 now, and Colorado State's a Power 5 school, along with Boise
Well, I'm not so
State.
much laughing at that. That's part of it, but it's more so look at the collection of these 6 schools and then throw in 2 more. Throw in Tulane and UNLV or whatever the combination is. And then think about who is generally the best football team in any given year out of those schools. They are going to get an automatic bid to the college football playoff.
Indeed, indeed. So, I mean, speaking of a playoff, do you still think with the group of 5 will still kind of get a bid at that point too? Or do you think in the group of 5 would kind of be watered down a little bit that maybe they would have considered them giving a bid anymore?
Oh, I think that
That's
what
what
we're
I'm saying.
talking about, what I'm proposing, is not going to take place. I think that they'll restructure the contract, and they're not going to give an automatic bid to a conference that's no better than what the American Conference is right now.
Oh yeah, I know. But I was just saying, if they somehow get Power 5 status or something like that, in a hypothetical world where that happens, that's all I was asking. If the Pac-12 somehow got a automatic bid.
Well, technically, as the contract states, they will receive an automatic bid, but contracts are made to be broken.
Indeed, especially, we've seen this during the whole conference realignment period and all that stuff. That contracts are just written down, and then you have lawyers and money, you can get out of them quickly.
Yep. All right, Defiant, anything else going on?
Nope, Mark, that was about it. I wanted to talk about what happened with the Pac-12 today.
Absolutely. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
We keep it rolling here at the Voice of College Football, and remind you, we'll be back here at 2 p.m. Eastern Time with Ole Miss Live. We got Yakov checking in. Yakov, what's going on?
Hi, Mark. It's always great to see you.
Good to see you as well.
Yes, I love this morning show here. It's perfect timing. I work early in the mornings from 7 to 11. Not, I don't know if that's that early, but whatever. But signed off, came right. I checked on here. I was like, well, Mark's on. Let me listen and maybe even share something or two.
Well, the timing isn't quite as exquisite as you outline it there, because we usually shut down right at 11 o'clock.
Oh, see, I wasn't aware of that. Well, you know what? Then I'm going to really thank you for
Take your time.
Okay, well, I hope you didn't extend it just because I was on here. I hope it's because you were going to do it.
Well, I'm going to take a call. Yes, okay. Absolutely. I saw you there.
Okay, very good. Well, Mark, I thought I would just share. I know you always ask me, but sometimes people like and you said you enjoy when I share some type of historical story that happened to me, which I have not run out of. I've had several things that have happened in my life or know about that are sports related. And then I'll make, of course, a college football comment. Mark, the first baseball game I ever went to was in 1981. It was, although, I grew up in Canton, my parents are actually both from New Jersey. Well, my mom's from Pennsylvania, but right on the Jersey border. Okay. And my grandmother, until she passed about 20 years ago, lived in New Jersey near Atlantic City, New Jersey, Longport, New Jersey. And we used to go visit her every summer and sometimes in the winter as well. So the first baseball game I ever went to was in 1981. It would have been right after the end of the strike. My dad took me, there was a strike in 1981. My dad took me to the Phillies game, which was not that far from her house. And I didn't understand at the time. I was only been short of 7 years old. But it was actually the game where Pete Rose passed Stan Musial to be the all-time hit leader. So
36-30.
What's that?
36-30.
Yeah, that's right. They passed out these big things here, like a huge size card that had all his major hitting accomplishments on it, including that one, which you had to fill in because, of course, they didn't know when that would be. And I had that until my parents, unfortunately, had a fire in 2008. And that was one of the casualties of that fire. But I kept that from 1981 to 2008. I went to my cousin's wedding in 2011 in Las Vegas. They didn't get married at a chapel. They actually both lived there. And they've lived there for 20 years. But and I was walking through the mall, which was near my hotel. They have all these monstrous indoor malls there. And Pete Rose was signing autographs, as he's been doing for like 30 years to make money. I saw him there, and I said, Pete, this is interesting. The first game I ever went to was in, I can't remember the date now, July 1981. I saw you pass Stan Musial, and his response to me is, how about that, son? That's what he told me. But so,
that's great.
Yeah, that's my little story there. So again, I have a lot of.
I I was devastated when the strike hit.
Yeah. I don't remember it that well, but I know you cared a lot about baseball in those days. Yeah.
Every day I would read the paper, and I learned more about antitrust suits and sort for a 11-year-old than you could imagine in 1981.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the All-Star game was played in Cleveland, which was
Yes.
the first game back off the strike. Gary Carter hit 2 home runs in that game.
Were you thinking about attending? I know you're a young boy. Were you thinking of attending that game with your father, maybe?
I don't remember giving it strong consideration. I guess I just figured, this is kind of out of my reach. I didn't give it that kind of consideration, but I know that I went to games in 1981 at Cleveland Stadium. My first game at Cleveland Stadium was in 1978.
Oh, wow. Mine was in 82. I saw them play the Yankees on a summer night. They lost 6-0. And as the Yankees were coming off the field at the end of 8, I was with my dad. We sat by the dugout because in those days it was cheap to do it. And someone gave us the tickets. And I didn't get it. I didn't laugh until years later, but my dad was laughing hysterically. They were coming off the field at the end of 8. And he saw me. I'm only, 1982. So I guess I was short of 8 years old. And he said to me and my dad, he looked right at us and said, "You folks can all go home now. The game's over." And my dad thought that was really funny. He started laughing about that. He wasn't trying to talk trash. He saw little me and said, "It's 10 o'clock. Take him home already. The game's over." He was saying it more out of kindness toward me. My dad thought it was really funny and laughing. I didn't get the humor in that comment until several years later when we were talking about it. Oh, that wasn't trash talk. That was a funny comment to say, let us know that after 6-0 at the end of 8, the game was over. But so that was my first game in Cleveland in 1982. But Mark,
I always wanted my dad to take me to go see the Yankees every year at Cleveland Stadium. So I would always go see the Yankees. And then my favorite player was Mickey Rivers, who played center field for the Yankees.
I remember him, yeah.
And then he was traded to the Rangers. So I would want to go see the Rangers and the Yankees, even though I was an Indians fan, first and foremost. And your story brings to mind in 1981, I saw, so this would have been, I think, before the strike. Yes. I saw the Yankees and Dave Righetti, who became a great closer, was a starting pitcher. That was his rookie year, and arguably had a better year than Fernando Valenzuela, who won the Cy Young Award in the National League. Anyway, Dave Righetti pitched a near shutout, and then Goose Gossage came in and closed the game in the 9th inning, and the Yankees beat the Indians. They went on to the World Series that year.
Which is the first World Series I remember, slightly following. And then 82 for sure, but 81 I knew that it was happening, but I didn't watch all the games. But Mark, it's good for you and I that if we had kept our fandom that we had for all these sports nowadays, I'd have to be independently wealthy because I wouldn't have any time to work.
No.
I would never have graduated. If this technology existed when I was in high school, I might have had to drop out. But thank God it didn't happen. My mom used to give me a hard time. I was like a B+ student. She gave me a hard time for reading the Canton Repository sports section for like 30 minutes every day. She said I could do something better. And that's all I could do. I would listen to Jeff Sindelar for an hour.
Jeff Sindelar.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't have, this. So.
Oh, that was a must. The Professor.
I love you, Cleveland. That's how you sign off. I love you.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think I've told you that my mom, this is when the NFL draft was during the week. When I was starting in junior high, I don't remember the first year this happened. I think I was in 7th grade. This would have been about 1982, 81, 82, that my mom let me stay home for the NFL draft every year.
It was during the day before they started televising it at night.
Yeah, it was like Tuesday afternoon. The NFL draft was on.
What's his name decided that should be a primetime event. I guess it was Pete Rozelle or whoever was before him. Said, "Hey, this is popular. Let's make it at night." And
yeah, it took a while.
Weekends
for that to happen.
Yeah,
not back in those days. Yeah,
and they would answer the phone with their helmet phones.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah. Mark, although I love talking about this, should I make a college football point?
Oh, we probably should.
Yeah, I don't want you to lose your audience.
Yeah, I could talk about old baseball games all night.
Yeah, I know. We don't want to lose your audience, Mark. Although hopefully a lot of people appreciate that as well. Mark, I'd like, I think at this time of year, overreactions, I'm not going to say anything about Ohio State. There's a team in the Big Ten that's caught my attention that I think has a bright season ahead, and that's the Illinois Fighting Illini. that team reminds me a lot of some of those Wisconsin, where he was the coach, those tough defense running teams. I think Michigan's, I can tell you this, they play good defense, Illinois. They have a great running game. They're tough. I'm going to make a prediction on your channel right now. Michigan will go to Champaign, Illinois, and come out, and the game will end. They will have less points than the University of Illinois. They're going to be defeated by the University of Illinois. And I'm glad we're not playing there. I'm glad Ohio State's not playing in Illinois. I think would win, but that'd be a buzzsaw. I think Illinois, I got to look at the schedule right now, but they should win 9 games. They have a tough, they have a tough team there. And they're just a team that I know you don't talk that much Illinois football, but like you, things catch my mind. I could just come here and talk about Ohio State, but you have enough of that. But Illinois, and that guy can just flat out coach, especially the running game, especially defense. He had, I think they're going to win 9 games, and I think there's going to be an awful lot of Big Ten teams that didn't think that was going to be a loss that are going to end up losing to the University of Illinois this year.
9 wins for Illinois. Well, of course, they have cleared the Kansas hurdle. That was an impressive win.
Yeah.
They've got Central Michigan coming up this weekend. All right. Then they go straight into the Big Ten gauntlet, 9 straight.
Yeah.
The first 2 at Nebraska, at Penn State.
Wow. Okay. Tough
Then
game.
they've got a week off.
Yeah.
Then they've got Purdue, the Michigan game you're talking about at home.
5 game. Yeah.
Then they go to Oregon.
I don't know. They got to be as good as they're probably as good as Boise State or Idaho.
Minnesota, Michigan State at home, bye week, then Rutgers and Northwestern on the road.
I give them 9 wins from that and I give them a whole bunch of road losses there. I gave them losses at Oregon, and I'm not even saying I agree with that. Oregon, Penn State, and Nebraska. I'm not looking at the schedule right now, just offhand, but I get them the 9 wins with giving them all those 3 road losses there.
Okay, I'll go 8-4.
Okay, that's a nice year for Illinois. They win 9 games. If they win 9 games, I'm going to make him Big Ten Coach of the Year.
Oh, absolutely, he would be. I don't know if I'm going 8-4 optimistically is what I'm going. I don't know what I picked them for the season. I think 5-7.
Well, if you had to upgrade that, I'm sure you had to rethink that. You probably would have a different one. I know that was your prediction for the season.
Yeah.
You might upgrade that if you're doing it right now.
I didn't expect them to beat Kansas.
Yeah. Mark, appreciate you staying on a little more and letting me go down memory lane, sharing a football thought. And I hope you have a great rest of the day, Mark. And I look forward to seeing you soon.
Thanks, Yakov. Good to see you.
Bye, Mark.
All right. We got a contribution coming in from Waxman. Appreciate that. I enjoy your show a lot. A long-time listener. Thank you for that, Waxman. Appreciate you. And we will take a call from Michael. Last call of the day. Apparently, we're just slightly short of our goal for overtime. Michael, how you doing?
Good, Mark. How you doing this morning?
I am doing great. And if you have yet to do so, you should check out our Notre Dame live stream from last night on the Notre Dame channel, because we, of course,
talked about
gave quite a Purdue preview.
Okay, I didn't even know about it. I had a prior commitment last time, but anyway, like I was saying, I gotta disagree with Yakov. I don't see 9 wins for Illinois. I don't even see 8 wins. I may be thinking 6 to 7 wins for the Illini this year.
Yeah, well, your prediction is more likely to happen. Sure.
Mm-hmm. Not bad, but I gotta give you kudos for saving the Pac-12. How long was the surgery? I have to say, to get the surgery done, to bring them back to revive the Pac-12.
Well, they're still in surgery.
Are they?
They have yet to recover from surgery, but they're on resuscitation.
Okay, so he was able to bring him back, because I figured he spent all night in the OR trying to revive him and stuff like that. So the thing I'm trying to figure out, so is this going to bring the Power 5 back? And do you think the Mountain West is going to eventually become the new Pac-12, the whole Mountain West?
I do not believe that the Pac-12 is going to want the entire Mountain West Conference. No. I think that the Mountain West is going to be able to sustain itself by acquiring FCS teams.
Okay. So right now, I think it's it's Washington State, Boise State, Oregon State, and I didn't catch the other 3 teams.
So you got Oregon State and Washington State already in the pack, and then the 4 teams that they are reported to add are Boise State, Fresno State, San Diego State, and Colorado State.
Okay, not bad teams.
That gets them to 6, and they need to get to 8 to have a viable conference, according to the NCAA.
Okay, who do you see maybe going from maybe like the American or the Conference USA?
Well, if they're going to stay in the Mountain West, just because these are the initial 4 doesn't mean that they won't go back to the Mountain West. A la the Big Ten, the first wave was USC, UCLA, but they still then, of course, took Oregon and Washington. So don't look past UNLV, Air Force. Those would be the 2 best candidates in my eyes.
I forgot about Air Force.
And then possibly, like you say, Tulane, Memphis, Texas San Antonio.
Yeah. Okay. I can see that and stuff like that. No, I was just wondering stuff like that. All right. I could I just wanted to get your take about it and wasn't sure about the others and stuff like that. So when do they have to have the 8 secured by?
July of 2026.
Okay.
They have 2 years.
All right. Well, under 2 years, but I think I'll get it done before the. Is there a chance if I get the other 2 teams before they can start doing stuff next season, or does that have to be 2026, the earliest?
They have to wait, or they have to wait at least 1 year to pay an $18 million buyout. Each one of those schools has to pay $18 million if they wait a year.
Okay.
If they don't wait at all, they got to pay $36 million.
Wowzers.
So they'll probably wait a year is apparently what we're looking at.
All right.
I'll have to
Okay.
reread that just to make sure I got the dates straight on that.
Okay, just wondering because I wasn't sure and stuff like that. I was just trying to think too. I'm trying to think. Is Ole Miss on the bye week this week?
Ole Miss?
Yeah.
No, they've got Wake Forest.
That's we're at there at the Grove.
They're on the road at Wake Forest. We're
so
going
that
to
should be
do
a
an Ole Miss
game.
show at 2:00. So we're going to talk some Wake Forest football.
Yeah, I think you could have Leanne on. That's
Yes,
what you're
Leanne
right?
and Tony Siracusa, who covers Wake Forest for Last Word on College Football.
Nice, not bad. All right, I was just wondering stuff like that. All right, sir. I think that's it because you need to get some rest for being in surgery all night. Not just joking about that, but no, it's good to see them coming back in and stuff like that. But are you surprised they got teams this quick though with the Pac-12?
No, not surprised.
All right, I will let you go. And you doing the post-game show tomorrow night?
Yes, we will. We will do that.
So
Yes, we've got a good game tomorrow
Who?
night with Arizona and Kansas State.
Oh man! All right, so that means it's 11 o'clock kickoff then, or is it K-State tomorrow?
I think they're kicking off at 8.
Oh, so the game's in K-State then.
Well, regardless of where it is, they'll kick the game off. I think these Fox games are going to kick off at 8:00 Eastern.
Okay, not bad. I didn't know and stuff like that. All right, sir. Then enough like that. I gotta get ready because I got a football game myself.
All right,
Take care.
Michael.
Have a good one.
Thanks for the call.
See ya. Bye.
Have a good one. Bye. The TV networks will schedule the games when they schedule the games. Let's not necessarily think that just because they're in a certain time zone that they're going to not schedule games when they want to schedule games. Obviously, the only application to that would be that there are no West Coast games at 9:00 in the morning, meaning noon Eastern. Aside from the COVID year when they forced USC and Arizona State to do that to start Pac-12 play that year. All right, folks, we appreciate you being here at the Voice of College Football. I will go to work on this Pac-12 situation because we want to look at the current candidates that are reported to be signed and sealed and just about completed, and look at their qualifications, and then also look at the other candidates within the Mountain West and outside the Mountain West for inclusion into the Pac-12. So we will do that here at the Voice of College Football, and we will see you next at 2 p.m. Eastern Time right here for the premiere of the Ole Miss live show. How about that? That should be a good one. We also have our Michigan live call-in show tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. See you too. College football is even more exciting with some action on the line. And the games are even better when you're cashing in. And the Voice of College Football is the place to be to get the greatest value. Let's start with my picks. 75% against the money line, 58% against the spread. I've got a 40-year track record. In fact, in 2023, at $100 played per game, you would have netted over $9,300. And guess what? I'm just the warm-up act. Steve Merrill, our ace in the hole, show stopper from Wager Talk. 6 years with the Voice of College Football, over 30 years in the industry. Steve gives us analysis on all the big games, but you can't miss Steve's weekly under-the-radar pick, which went 21-5 against the spread the last 2 seasons. I repeat, 21-5 against the spread. You also get picks from some of our top analysts here at the Voice of College Football, including Steve Dace and Matt Zemek. Become a YouTube channel member or Patreon member for just $99 per month. Go to the main channel on YouTube, click join, and select the betting tier. Do the same thing on Patreon. Make 2024 a winner now.